Hi, my name is Dr. Peg Dawson. I'm a psychologist at the Center for Learning and Attention Disorders in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, where I specialize on working with children and adults with learning and attention problems. And the information I'm going to present today relates to teen brain development and its impact on behavior, and including information that I think would be helpful for both educators as well as clinicians. The information is compiled primarily from a recent book published by the American Psychological Association called The Adolescent Brain, Learning, Reasoning, and Decision-Making, edited by Raina, Chapman, Dougherty, and Confrey. What I plan to do is discuss recent research on teen brain development, focusing on one key aspect, higher-order thinking skills. To do this, I will focus on frontal lobe and executive skills development, since these regions of the brain play a primary role in the acquisition of these skills. Ed.D, who is a physician and researcher at the National Institute of Mental Health, has done extensive brain imaging research in recent years that has told us a lot about how the brain matures from childhood to adulthood. According to Ed, it's only been 20 years since the first MRI studies of healthy brain development were conducted. But as a result of these studies, we are now able to map the trajectories of brain development across this critical age span. And what we've learned from this is that it takes about 25 years for executive skills to reach full maturation in a normal population. Executive skills, I should say, refer to the brain-based skills that are needed to execute tasks. Skills such as task initiation, sustained attention, planning, organization, time management, emotional control, and self-regulation, as well as problem-solving skills. We know that executive skills come online and reach full maturity at different ages, but most of them don't mature until well into adulthood, especially those skills involved in decision-making, reasoning, and problem-solving. This is because there are key changes taking place in the brain that dramatically change the way teenagers analyze information and evaluate risk and reward. So here's what we know. We know that white matter volumes increase throughout childhood. White matter is another term for myelin. This is a fatty sheath that wraps itself around the axons of brain cells to increase conduction velocity. Every time a skill is practiced, nerve cells in the brain fire. The more they fire, the thicker the myelin becomes. And myelin then acts as insulation that enables the impulse to travel even faster. The faster the impulse travels, the better the skill. Myelin also shortens the recovery time so the nerve cell can fire again more quickly. The combination of increased speed and quicker recovery time results in a 3,000-fold increase in the amount of information transmitted per second. This is why teens are able to perform important skills faster and more adeptly than when they were younger. Another change taking place in the brain during the teen years is something called pruning. The human brain is born with many more nerve cells than we can actually use. And at the same time that myelin is increasing the speed with which nerve cells fire, those nerve cells that are not being used are being discarded in a process called pruning. This allows the remaining nerve cells to work even more efficiently, thus allowing for a further skill refinement. Finally, adolescence brings an increase in connectivity between different regions of the brain. And the more networks there are and the better they communicate with each other, the more complexity the brain is able to manage. While the capacity for engaging in this kind of thinking emerges at adolescence, there is evidence that these skills do not just emerge on their own, but need to be taught. The evidence for this comes from international studies that show that American students have failed to keep pace with these skills compared to students in other developed countries. Sadly, these trends coincide with a greater emphasis on standardized testing, with more and more instructional time being devoted to teaching to the test and emphasizing rote memorization of facts. In a chapter entitled Higher Order Strategic Gist Reasoning in Adolescence, the authors Chapman, Gamino, and Mudar state, "We would predict that students taught in a rote, mechanistic style of learning facts would build brains very different from the brains of those trained to abstract, synthesize, connect, and apply meaning to their own world and other acquired knowledge." These authors use the term strategic gist reasoning to describe this kind of thinking. This has been defined as the ability to derive global meaning from explicit details. With this kind of reasoning, the whole is more than the sum of its parts. Chapman, Gamino, and Mudar suggest that the ability to benefit from training and to actively engage in strategic reasoning may be optimal during adolescence and young adulthood. This is because the brains of younger children focus on details and lack the ability to integrate those details to derive broader principles. For example, when you ask students to summarize, which involves knowing what information to attend to and retain when condensing text, you find that this skill emerges at 5th grade, but is rare. Only 14% of the time are 5th graders able to perform this task. 7th graders can do it well about 28% of the time, 10th graders about 36% of the time. College students can perform the skill adequately about 50% of the time, compared to mature learners who are capable of summarizing essential information about 85% of the time. We believe that you can explicitly teach students to do the kind of gist reasoning required for higher order thinking and problem solving. One way to do this is to teach students how to summarize. And a study that did this, they used middle school students, gave them passages to read, and told the students to ask themselves 2 questions. 1, who or what is the paragraph about? And 2, what is happening to them? They were also taught that a summary sentence tells what the whole paragraph is about in a few words. And finally, these students were given a self-monitoring checklist and asked to check off as they completed each step in the summarization process. Results of this study show that students could learn the procedure and were able to generalize it to new material as well. Another strategy, which my co-author Richard Guare and I discuss in the books we have written on executive skill development, is to embed metacognitive questions into classroom discussions and the conversations we have with teenagers to help get them thinking more deeply and to help them activate and hone their problem-solving skills. This presentation is focused on only one aspect of executive skill development. The more educators and mental health clinicians understand the impact of executive skills on school performance and overall adjustment, the more they will be able to use this knowledge to help promote executive skill development. I encourage viewers to seek out other resources.